Hello Goddesses, I'm Sierra Bender, author of Goddess to the Core, and then also the creator of the Sierra Bender Empowerment Method that has helped thousands of women and girls around the world to become empowered. And so that's our subject today. It's not going to be such a pretty one, but it's that time of year when you're getting your child off to school for college, and wow, I have some news to tell you before you bring your precious daughter to college campus. As you know, it's all over the news. It has been. I've been fighting this rape on college campuses for over 8 years now. I've been to Harvard, I've been to Simmons, I've been to Northeastern and other colleges with my Day of Empowerment. And why I created this was I saw this pattern that was happening, that the one generation that I was missing, since I worked with teenagers and all women of ages, stages, and economic backgrounds, that the one age group that was missing was the women who are in their early 20s, college ages, and they're at their most vulnerable and yet most powerful for potential. And so when I saw this age group was missing, is one, they can't afford to come out to a bunch of these programs, so I'd go and speak and donate my services and do these programs. I said to myself that what is going on here with this pattern that I'm seeing with these young women? Then from doing all the research with my Sierra Bender Empowerment Method, what I saw was that looking at the national statistics, and I finally pinpoint what it was. The national statistics say that 1 out of 3 women they are a statistic of violence and sexual assault before the age of 18. Let me say that again. 1 out of 3 women are a statistic of sexual assault and abuse before the age of 18. So by the time they're going to college, they are going to a space and place, a university, that's a breeding ground for another incident of sexual assault and abuse because of the partying that happens. Now, I'm sure you're not sending your kid to go to party, you're going to send your child to go to study. And because of the Greek life on college campuses and the herding mentality that happens, it's called target rape. That these young men, you're sending your 18-year-old girl to a university and she's surrounded by young men and they become prey. So you're sending your daughter off, and if she is not educated and you're not preparing her for this, and it's sad to say because it is a reality, it's a horrible plague that's going on around college campuses. But we also have to take responsibility to get our daughters prepped and have them sit down and have this conversation with them. And also some of these girls just aren't as sweet as you think they are, and they're very promiscuous, and they're trying to do things on college campus because they couldn't get away with it at home or in their town, and then they have all this freedom and they don't know what to do with it. And because they're so naive, they think nothing's ever going to happen to them. And we all know that young girls, women compared to men, our bodies cannot handle liquor as men do. So this pattern that is going around on college campuses, with rape, is just horrific. And 9 out of 10 times, the women know their attackers. And they don't report it because, one, they don't want you to know about it as a parent because you're sending them off to school. They feel shame, blame. They don't even remember it sometimes because they black out because they drank so much or somebody put something in their drink. So there's a couple of other things that you need to know as a parent as you send off your precious daughter off to school. Is that there is target rape. And target rape is that these young men, and if you have sons, you also have to teach them about how not to fall prey into the herding mentality. These young men prey on these women. And again, 9 out of 10 times they know who, when, where, why they want to attack these young women. They set it up. They watch her, they say, oh, let me walk you home because you're a friend. I don't want you to walk home alone. Number one, they should never be alone, ever, even with a male friend. When people drink, their attitudes change, their intentions change. So even though he may be a nice boy and he may be your friend, you never go home alone with him. you go home with another girlfriend, you make sure that you're in a group energy atmosphere. But usually what happens is that they walk home or they go home alone, they bring them back to their room, oh, let me come in, they're attracted to her, they know their roommate's not there, and they just set this whole thing up. This is premeditated. This isn't just like, oh, I went out, I had a couple of too many drinks, I'm promiscuous, and let's just have sex. So we have to understand what the herd mentality is on college campus. That these young men are the ones who set up the parties. And as I always say to the girls in the sororities, why are you not having the parties in your sorority on your terms, and the men will follow? Wherever there's women, of course, men will follow. Why are you not using that power? And 9 out of 10 times it's because the boys have the money, because they spend the money on the parties and the girls don't. So we really need to look at what's going on the culture on college campuses. The other thing is that a lot of the colleges say that they want to, and I'm just being brutally honest with this, they say that they want to solve this problem, and yes, the university can only do so much. They can't take the law into their hands in certain circumstances, but there needs to be more than just courses about talking about this and awareness. It's actually giving them tools to empower themselves. So that's what I do with the Day of Empowerment, that I've gone again to these different colleges, and we have a full day force of empowerment, of self-defense, what to do in certain circumstances, is how to handle this. It's all about self-esteem. It's about teaching the reality of young women that these tools are not only for on college campus, it's also after they leave college, how they're again in a very vulnerable position in the corporate world, of bosses' abuse of power. Even when you get married, you have children, it's about setting boundaries, it's about knowing your worth, it's about understanding how your power and your energy works. So the girls love it. We also measure them so that we can see the results. And for those girls who were a statistic, it's empowering them not to be a statistic again. And that's the huge part of what college campuses have to understand. It's not all their fault about what's going on, but there needs to be an awareness of that. Again, 1 out of 3 of these girls that are coming in are already a statistic, and they will become a statistic again. And because in the silence is the violence is the term that I use, is a lot of women don't report it, and in their silence the violence continues, where it becomes self-inflicting, putting themselves again in unhealthy situations. So talking about some unhealthy situations and terms, here's what I'm talking about, which is again a very horrific. When I heard this, and I've been working with this for years, and I heard these 3 terms and 3 expressions of what goes on college campus with the herding mentality, I actually wanted to throw up when I heard this. And this is how bad our society is with the male herding mentality, and also about how women are considered a sport, like it's hunting. It's like the hunting grounds basically when you are on a college campus. So one is called the pimp and hoe parties. Now, the young men dress up as pimps and the young women dress up as prostitutes, and then the men rate the women from a 1 to 10. Okay, what's wrong with that picture is, 1, why would the women even go to that and think that that is acceptable? And 2, for the men to think that they have the power to rate these women from a 1 to 10, as if, what is wrong with these women to think that their self-esteem is so low that they would go to such a party and berate themselves to be rated from a 1 to 10? So right there, that whole culture on campus of thinking that that's okay is not okay. And why aren't campuses even stopping these parties? You know, again, you didn't send your kid to go to party, you sent your kid to college to go get an education. The second one is called the weigh-in. That men, these young men, are having sex with as many women as they can, and they weigh in. Not meaning weigh in that they're having sex with a heavier set young woman. They're weighing in of how many women they've had sex with, and they compete. Pretty sick. The third one is, which is even more horrific, is called the cherry pickers. So one young man will prey on a younger woman, and it's always the freshmen because they're at their most vulnerable 9 out of 10 times as they're coming into campus. You know, young women, when they're coming in, they're looking for a tribe, network to connect, and of course they're at their most vulnerable. And so these men will prey on one woman who's not as attractive as the other girls, and they want to befriend her, and then they bring her to a party. He lures her into a party and then lures into a space and place where she's isolated, and they gang rape her. So as a parent, you need to know these things. And as a parent, you need to get on these things, and you need to start holding the universities accountable. Now, I've been around college campuses trying to talk about this. Of course, it's not a very pleasant conversation. But then again, they don't want you to know everything. And why I'm saying this is, instead of knocking on the university's doors and trying to get into the situation, and maybe this will harm me, but at this point it doesn't really matter because it's just about the health and well-being of young women. But I'm offended, I am disgusted by what happens on college campuses and why it's not getting stopped at these certain circumstances, such as maybe Greek life has outlived itself. Maybe universities need to, be stricter with their rules and regulations with alcohol and partying, and shut down some of these things, and I'm sure they're finally starting to do it. But why do so many women have to suffer? The sad part of it is, if she already is a statistic of rape on campus, then it's too late. So why is it that the money's not going into prevention has always been my question. Why is it trying to put a Band-Aid on something? And as we know, sometimes, we don't want to deal with it because it's easier until it gets so bad where we have to turn all our energy into it, and then we're wasting so much time, money, and energy, and so many people are suffering. So as we look at the prevention model, how to solve some of these problems, and then also the abuse of power. I understand from both sides of this what's happening and how it works. And so as a parent, you have the power, because at the end of the day, you are paying the universities to send your child to go to that school. What I need you to do as a parent is to have that conversation with your daughter, and even your son, because even if your son was at a party and he saw other men being inappropriate, you need to educate him on how to handle this, because from the hurting mentality, he could get hurt, of course, if he comes out and says something, and gets himself into trouble. But there are ways that he can go around it, pulling her out of a situation and educating him on how to handle that situation. So there was just one incident that just happened, and one of the young men knew that these men were luring his friend, this young woman, into a room, and they were going to rape her, and said, hey, by the way, your car is being towed outside. You need to get outside and get to your car, which then stopped that incident from happening. There are ways that, young men who are innocent and put into these situations, I can only imagine, watching something like that happen, and then how it also affects them mentally, emotionally, and even in relationships. So there are both sides to this. And what is it about men when they gather? I mean, we studied this at Harvard and at law. What is it about? Is there something that snaps in a young man's mind and a man's mind, that when they come into a group, the hurting mentality, what happens to them? They just lose their mind. And it becomes very primal, where they find that some of these things are acceptable, or they're so in the moment that they forget that they're an individual, and they forget the integrity of who they are and lose consciousness, and they snap. So what is it about that? So again, having that conversation with your son, have the conversation with your daughter, call up the university and ask them, what programs do you have in order to prevent my daughter from being raped on college campus? What do you have if something of this nature does happen? And don't tell me you're going to go take it to the state or the county. What do you have on your college campus besides the Title IX that you can look up online, or different rape crisis centers that they have to go into the town, into the county, into off campus. We want these things on campus. Now, let's also think of it this way. Do you think a young woman is going to walk to walk into an office that says rape crisis center over her head? No, there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of emotion that goes through this. And so, I always call it the holding tank. So I prep all the girls, that they're friends and sororities, about how to handle the situation so that the girl who was put in this situation, that she has help from the beginning to the end. And the other thing is educating young women what their rights are, what the law is. So those are my tips for bringing your child, your precious daughter, your son going into college. You really need to pay attention to this subject because everybody thinks it'll never ever happen to them, and it does. And the sad part of it is a lot of times you won't find out from your daughter or your son. So watch them, watch their behavior. Are they getting depressed? Are they drinking more? Are they isolating? These are all signs, and make sure that you take this very seriously because it will affect the rest of their life and your life. So have a great night. If anybody has any questions, you can contact me at 888-794-3330, 888-794-3330. You could also go on my website, sierrabender.com. If you'd like me to come and speak to a group on your college campus, you want me to come and participate in any of this to help prevent rape on college campus, I'm available. I love to solve this problem and be more aggressive on this. Thank you very much, and have a great night.